What's going on, Bulls Nation, and welcome into the CHGO Bulls podcast, presented to you by PointsBet. Don't forget that promo code CHGO when you sign up to live your bet life. Yeah. I'm Peck. Big Dave is here. Yeah. Joey, our producer, and joining us in studio, we are so thrilled to have her here. Orland Park native, DePaul basketball star,
preach it,
autographed the DePaul shirt on the set. Chicago sports fans know her from her wonderful and long-term work at CSN Chicago, Comcast Sportsnet, that's what they called it back in the day.
Yes.
Now, contributor at SiriusXM NBA, YES Network, doing color commentary for the Brooklyn Nets, who we're going to talk about. Soap opera offseason for them. The one, the only Sarah Kustok. Give it up, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
You're right here.
This is amazing.
Welcome. You know, the last time
you are high class.
Oh, well,
I've been called many things.
I would say somewhere between middle and upper middle class.
Yeah. Right? Also let me wear a hat and sneakers, which I appreciate.
Every episode.
Every day. I really wouldn't have took this job if they wouldn't let me wear a hat.
It's true.
Literally my first question.
You got some sweetness.
Come on. I saw my shoes matching the TLC shirt. Can we get on the TLC? We're doing it right today.
So the last time we saw you in person and chatted basketball with you in person was All-Star Weekend 2020, about a week and a half before the world shut down.
Crazy.
We were doing a live show at, what was it? Was it Highline in River North?
Yes,
I want to say.
It was Highline, yeah.
And you popped by, generous to give us some of your time on what I'm sure was a crazy busy All-Star Weekend for everybody.
It was.
And then, poof, 2 years went by. And here you are back in Chicago.
Like no time has passed.
Exactly, except it felt like a decade.
Or a lifetime, one of the two.
So how you been?
I'm here with you.
Yeah.
I'm back in Chicago for a quick second. I'm waiting for my phone once this comes out to blow up that I didn't hit up all the people that I should have seen.
Are we about to get you in trouble?
Yeah, you are.
I didn't know you were in Chicago.
Yeah, you are.
I appreciate
you. Two, I would be here. But no, everything's amazing.
I appreciate you putting that on the
line.
Yes.
Summertime's almost
getting closer. NBA training camp right around the corner.
Right there.
And because Woj knew you were coming to hang out with us today, he gave us a Woj bomb like 20 minutes ago.
Kaboom.
So we want to get your thoughts on what happened in Brooklyn this offseason. And, of course, we'll talk to you about your thoughts on the Bulls. But let's just start with this. One of the Bulls' division rivals, the Cleveland Cavaliers, are now the new team for one Donovan Mitchell. How many people in New York are going to be real cranky about that? Everyone thought he was going to the Knicks. And instead he goes to Cleveland. What's your immediate reaction to this trade?
My immediate reaction is Cleveland is a team to watch out for if they weren't already. I mean, you saw what they did last year, the growth of so many individuals. Obviously, the start they had to the season, they had some injuries that they dealt with towards the end. Gave up a good chunk of both players, picks, swaps, as you see. But to think about Darius Garland alongside Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, I mean,
that's a squad.
They're a crew.
Yeah.
And I think, too, just the chemistry, the confidence, the growth you saw in that young group from last year, and just how things finished out with the season. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited to watch him. Jarrett Allen, of course, has a special place in my heart for him.
I can't believe the Nets let him go.
Brooklyn, and just the growth you saw, one of the best human beings. And so I've always kind of had my eye a little extra on what the Cavaliers were doing. But yeah, this is going to be something to see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting watching him in the East and just how he develops and grows even more. You know what I mean? Because now he's going from one good team to another good team. And this one is actually younger and hungrier, I think. So now having Mobley there as well.
I also, and I think just, Corey, you bring up like the defensive presence of so many of those individuals, the rim protection they had with a Jarrett Allen, with an Evan Mobley. You bring up Okoro, playing alongside, as I mentioned, Garland, and just how they could play off one another, the ability to play on the ball, off the ball. There's so many aspects of his game, and I think you look at some of the gaps to fill, some of the strengths he brings, it's going to be a really, really nice fit.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, everybody, of course, this summer was thinking, wow, what an aggressive move the Hawks made, and, gave up all of that capital to bring in DeJounte Murray to pair with Trae Young. It was like, oh, man, this is the new hot backcourt in the East. And I was like, well, hold on. Now we got Mitchell paired with Darius Garland, who's coming off a great season. It's like, where is there a bad backcourt in this echelon of teams in the Eastern Conference?
Well, and that's where I think you look at this trade, you look at what was given up in terms of picks and in terms of the future. But I think overall what you're starting to see across the board, especially in the Eastern Conference, I think a lot of teams feel like, hey, we could put ourselves in contention, given you got Milwaukee, you got Boston. I'll put Brooklyn in there, what Philadelphia has done this summer and this offseason, how they may come back and look. But there's a variety of teams, I think, Cleveland being one of them, that says we got a shot to make a run. There's no team that is such a front runner that now may not be the time. And I think we've seen, whether it's players wanting trades, the movement that happens, so often you think you have this window. You think you have, we're going to look at things in the long term, and you got players, you got talent, you got potential, you got a group that can run with one another. I think sometimes you just got to go for it, and it looks like that's what the Cavaliers have done.
I'm curious now, though, about what team is out of there, because I think in our heads the four were set as far as Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, and Miami and teams like that. You could throw Brooklyn in there for sure. And the other teams were basically Toronto, the Bulls, and Cleveland. So now with this move, who do you think they're kind of leapfrogging, and who might be the odd team out here?
It's tough to say. I don't even know who being out, and I will say that I apologize I didn't bring up the Bulls earlier, because I'm excited.
We got plenty of time to get to them. Don't worry.
I'm excited about what Chicago has done, but I think so much is. And you mentioned Atlanta earlier.
Yeah.
Like I think
too. Yeah.
It's the easy cop out for me to give you this answer, but I think so much is predicated on health, on how teams come together. I think when you have new pieces and new parts, how guys are able to gel, the acclimation process. I think that's why when you look at what Milwaukee has been and what they were last season, Chris Middleton obviously getting injured during the playoffs, where Boston got to, so much to me is the continuity and the understanding of what you're trying to do. And of course, Ime Udoka did an incredible job his first year, the system he was implementing, but a lot of those core players had been used to one another. And so that's why I think when you look at some of these teams and where things sit in the East, how quickly can you start to come together, and what that looks like in the course of a season, which is a long season with health. And I think the last couple of years, as we all know, with COVID and the pandemic and everything, things have been wacky. And a lot of teams, have been missing players at different stretches. And so I'm always excited about every season, but this to me feels like, okay, we're back in it. This is the real deal of teams having a runway, having some time, having an off season, and being able to have that preparation.
Okay, well, so speaking of trying to figure out where the power structures are in the Eastern Conference, let's talk about the team that you've spent the last few seasons covering, the Brooklyn Nets. What the hell? Like they're outdoing Days of Our Lives this summer with all of the drama going on. And then after all of the drama, Kyrie exploring the market before picking up the option, Kevin Durant hours before free agency window opens, demanding a trade, an ultimatum, Marks and Nash go or I go. And here we are, and it's like, well, actually this trio of stars and Kyrie, KD, and Ben Simmons are all theoretically going to suit up and play. What was that thought process like for people like you who've been covering that team all offseason?
They were thinking about people like you. How many days a week do you do the show?
Oh, we do the show 5 days a week in the offseason.
And normally sometimes there's stretches, the dog days of the summer. You don't have a lot to talk about, right?
Oh, true. We've talked plenty about the Brooklyn Nets.
Were you like, oh my God, thank you, Kev, for giving us some stuff. Thank you for giving us a little something to talk about.
Some people, Pat Bev, didn't appreciate the Kevin Durant domino waiting to fall, but
understood.
For us, it was great.
No, in all sincerity, it was an interesting summer, and I would say taking that back to an interesting last year and the last 2-3 years. To me, what is it with dog years? It's 7 years. Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like I've been 21 seasons, because you think about the different iterations of this group, the way the roster looked, even going back to imagining James Harden on this team, which wasn't that long ago, but seems like a lifetime ago, and there were such high expectations at so many points. And I think the tough part about it, that it was always this theoretical idea, because we saw them on the floor together for such a small amount of time. And so what I will say, despite the many stages of the summer, the many changes that maybe were anticipated and now to this point do not seem like it, the roster as it sits now, I'm so excited about. Because when you look at a healthy Joe Harris, which I think was often overlooked last year of how functional he was, the way that offense operated.
Lethal three-point shooter.
Yeah, and he got hurt so early in the season that you kind of stopped talking about it, and he was so important. But with him, with Seth Curry, with what Ben Simmons, by all accounts, and he's looked great, but coming back from a major back surgery. So what he looks like, how he fits in the construct of this team, and then of course Kevin and Kyrie. But availability is always something, and the depth of the group and how that continues to fill out. TJ Warren coming in, what he looks like. There are a lot of question marks for this group, but I think in the same notion, and you could even put, Steve Nash in this coaching. I think there's a lot of guys with reason for motivation. I think there's a lot of guys with chips on their shoulder. I think when they come together, I'm really excited to sit there during the preseason and sit there during training camp and see how it looks because I think they have the potential. And you look at it on paper, but you look at things a lot on paper, and it doesn't actually come to fruition on the floor, and that's where I'm excited to see how that all looks.
Yeah, I mean, KD, Kyrie, and Harden on paper looks great.
Yeah.
And it was like, what do they play? 19 games together,
but they were ridiculous. I mean, they were killers
in those games when all three played. They were
and
very,
that's what I mean. It's one of those things
good.
where are you going to be able to get those guys or whoever it is, and I would turn this to a lot of different teams. How much of these players, how much of these lineups are you going to get on the floor for the duration of the season? And then when it matters most, you're looking at. We're already talking about the postseason next year. I mean, man, we're moving on. Fast forward.
We're going forward, and that's what's so interesting about this is about the big three that you all have now, because even with Harden there, we had seen KD and Harden play together, so we knew success could be there. We knew Kyrie and KD, we had seen success there. Ben Simmons is a whole new kind of wild card here for me because those guys, we have never seen them play together. We had to wait until Ben Simmons was actually ready physically and mentally to play basketball. And we know what he can bring to the floor. I mean, he's an all-NBA guy, he's an all-star, great defender, all those things. What do you think, what are you expecting from Ben Simmons when you're watching him, let's say just in the preseason?
I think the thing to remember about Ben and his game and how it could fit with this look, if he was an all-star. He was an all-defensive player. He hopefully still is. I mean, he hasn't played in about 15 or it will be 15 or 16 months. But what he can do in terms of advancing the ball, his passing ability, pushing the pace, and then that defensive side of things, what the Nets have absolutely needed, to fit that alongside Kevin Durant, who could score against anyone, Kyrie Irving, who could create against anyone. You got 3-point set up Seth and Joe in some corners. And that allows Ben to be the best version of himself, doing what he can do in less emphasis, less scrutiny on the shooting, and what does the jump shot look like, and how is he. That to me is where I think ideally the fit could be great with this group, because it's not so much about shooters that you need. It's not so much about creators and scorers, but he can facilitate, he can pass, he can do all those things, bringing the size, and more of what they need is that ability to be able to have that versatility, switchability on the defensive end. And so that to me is going to be how he looks now and how that will translate into game action again. I think is what makes everyone really excited about the potential of this look. But again, there's the talk of potential, and then there's the actual actualization of it happening on the floor.
And that's what I liked about this big three now. And I'm not saying I didn't like the other one, because I mean, God, you got 2 MVPs on there. But this one, I think I kept saying is like 2 out of 3. So either you on the offensive side, if Ben Simmons, like you said, is struggling, can't shoot, I still got Kyrie, still got Durant. On the defensive side, we know Kyrie is not a defensive dynamo, but now I got Ben Simmons and I got Kevin Durant. So now you got 2 out of 3 on both ends of the floor.
I also think, too, just the idea of we probably have all been there in change of pace, change of scenery, change of environment with all of that, and not to deep dive too, but I think Brooklyn has recognized that. They've embraced him, and they understand of trying to put him in the best position physically, mentally, all of those things, and he seems to be in such a great place. and so happy in the circumstance, in the situation, that, you know, to me, that additionally is something that sometimes, it's about how you are health-wise, your physical nature, how you fit in the context of a roster, but also just being in a place where you feel that confidence, you feel that comfort, and that fit to me is just as important as how it looks with your skill set.
Right. And it's interesting to me, and I want your perspective on this, that everybody's talking about, well, what kind of headspace is Kyrie going to be in on any given day or when training camp rolls around? And is Ben Simmons mentally ready to play yet? Not to mention the back. Kevin Durant still, to me, is the biggest, most important piece. He is the best player of the trio. Him buying in could create the domino effect of everyone else buying in. It's him who demanded a trade. And it's he who said, get rid of your GM and get rid of this coach or trade me. And then whatever it was, a week or 2 weeks ago, we get this report that, okay, well, Kevin Durant and his people sat down with the Nets, and we all got on the same happy page, and we're moving forward, and we're not trading KD, and everybody's rebought in. What do you think happened and what changed? And also what changed from when, theoretically, according to several reports and sources, Kevin Durant and Steve Nash, when he was consulting for the Warriors, became very close and, you know, friends and confidants. And what led KD to no longer believe in Steve Nash? And then how did he re-believe in Steve Nash a few months later? Or was it just, we can't find a trade that makes sense, sorry, KD. We're going to spin this as positively as we can, but we're just going to not trade you because we want to trade you 4 years under contract?
I know you all make me feel like a really popular person when I come here. If I had that answer, I would be the most popular person in the land of the NBA.
You have more Nets sources than we do.
I'm teasing. I'm just giving you a hard time. I don't know, and I don't know. I mean, the fact that none of us really know, and even in whatever reports and all this, no one ever really officially knew that. I don't know what conversations were had with that final meeting and where that came. But what I will say is, to me, the fact that Joe Tsai, Clara Tsai, Sean Marks, Steve Nash, Rich Kleiman, Kevin Durant's business partner, and were all there in the same room. So it wasn't a circumstance that Kevin was just there with the size, or it was everyone was together. So the resolution that they came up with, and to me the statement that came out of that it wasn't just, because it could go a variety of ways, and it still could, but it was about the long-term view and the championship goals and building something in Brooklyn, as opposed to, because in many circumstances it could be, Kevin is still seeking a trade, but for now we haven't found a viable partner, so he's going to return to training camp. And I am not sure. What I will say from my observations, from being at practice, from watching, that relationship you spoke about of him and Steve Nash, and going back to the Warriors days and the interactions between that two, to me that still existed. And so for whatever pressure that put on the circumstance, if it did it at all, I don't know if it's fully resolved. I'm curious to see what that's like. What I do know is we're around the NBA a lot. You all are. These players, Steve Nash has seen it all as a Hall of Fame player. I think everyone is used to a sense of turmoil at times. There are situations that occur. It's sometimes you go through this and you feel like you've seen and you heard everything, and it's just a part of the league. It's a part of the business. It's a part of interactions. It's a part of being around individuals for a long time. It's a part of competitiveness and how you're viewing the game. And so I'm not sure what changed. I'm not sure what happened, but I do know that the fact that it seemed as though the options for a trade of Kevin Durant
were minimal,
were not what you would trade for a player of his caliber.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's a businessman himself.
Fact.
Right.
So
When you
I'm
look
sure
at
at some point Joe Tsai said, I've been paying billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I'm a businessman.
Right.
Do any of these seem like a smart business decision to you?
Because you're talking about a trade package that would be somewhere between 1.5 and 2x the trade packages for a Mitchell or a Gobert.
And the flip side of that, too, to me, is showing these options where would be the other place to go that would give you a better opportunity
Yeah.
to contend for a title? And so I think all those factors come into play. I have the utmost respect for Joe Tsai and Clara Tsai. They care about the team. They are passionate about the team. And it's not just Brooklyn. It's New York Liberty. It's BSC.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes along with it. And I think they are invested in a way that's not just about the dollars. It's about wanting to give the fans the best. It's about wanting to see them win. It's about competing for a championship. And so I think that was probably the perspective and whatever the conversation, dialogue, discussion, additionally with Sean Marks and Steve Nash components. I think that's all a part of things you work through. Relationships are tough.
Well,
Are you married? Are you married?
Oh no.
No.
But I will say,
Dave is the closest thing to a marriage I have.
In other relationships, there's ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and you figure it all out.
Yeah,
That's true.
And I'm sure someone in your position who's covering this team on a daily basis loves it that you have star power players with these crazy personalities and incredible games when they're on the court. And I mean, it's the best of both worlds. You've got great basketball to talk about, and there's drama. So there's never a dull moment if you're covering the Brooklyn
I'm kind
Nets.
of a dramaless person.
Agreed with you.
I'm prefer,
with you.
But I'll
prefer
take it.
boring.
I will take it. The trade-off for me is
For the
watching
job.
and calling these individuals and the skill level, the talent level, all of those things. Like, it was such a joy, and it has been. So the fact that can continue, I'm really, really grateful.
Yeah, and playoff basketball is definitely in the future again for the Nets. Having this kind of team.
Dave, don't jinx me.
Well, he won't let me knock on Nick's table. I got to knock on this
These
one.
wooden side tables and knocking
saves
them
that
is
for the
specifically
Bulls.
reserved for Lonzo Ball's
Yes.
knee this summer, Sarah. That's the only thing you're allowed to
I'm
knock
with
on
you.
these
Okay,
tables
I
for.
I got
support
you over
that.
here. I got you over
support
here.
that.
I got you over
support
here.
that.
I want to ask you about the new guys you guys have brought in. T.J. Warren and Royce O'Neal.
Yeah.
Two guys that
I
kind of
forgot
stood out to
mention
me.
Royce, yeah.
And Royce in particular definitely stood out to me because, of course, when they made that trade, the famous Brian Windhorst, why is that trade thing happened? But Royce O'Neal was a really excellent guy, really excellent basketball player. And T.J. Warren is just a guy who I think has to stay healthy. Because you mentioned health earlier. He's definitely in that category of a guy that's got to stay healthy. Who are you looking forward to more watching their game kind of evolve and grow with the team?
Do we have time for a quick funny story?
Of
Sure.
course.
Oh,
So
what?
when
Yes.
when the initial Royce O'Neal trade happened, and then obviously subsequently the Kevin Durant trade request came out, I was in Spain at the time.
That's a flex.
Flex.
And
a
well,
flex.
I say that to say that my Wi-Fi and my service and everything happening on my phone was very poor.
Okay.
And maybe I shouldn't have even been gone at that time of the NBA year. But the only thing that came through for a while was the Royce O'Neal trade.
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, this is killer. Like, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Defensive presence, knocked down some three. I was really excited. And then I started getting different text messages come through that we're all talking about the Kevin Durant trade demand that were not, but it did not specifically say that. And I was very confused for a very long time. I'm like, man, why is everyone very upset about it? I think Royce is great. But I say that to say
And there he is.
that,
Yes.
Indeed.
Well done. Well done, Joe.
I'm so excited. The Royce O'Neal component, we talked about defense as well. Like, that's what he can bring to the table.
Sure.
3-point shooting, things like that. Good character guy. So excited about just how he may fit in and give you different optionality. And T.J. Warren, we saw him light it up in the bubble. Like, he was extraordinary then.
He was.
And that's a different context of what you're watching and how he may fit in or what you'll get from him or the health part about him staying healthy. But he's someone that I think it adds to the when I say question marks of he's someone who can give you something.
That's true.
Give you some scoring punch. Come in, play a position and come in to relieve some of the areas, because I think we saw last year in particular during the playoffs of how much, and a lot of it too was predicated on some injuries for the Nets, but how much responsibility in terms of scoring was placed on Kevin, on Kyrie. And so I think just his ability to hopefully be that person, come in, play a role in that way. But health is a factor. Health's a factor for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think for him as well, you look at what he'll come back and look like. You will look at what Ben may come back and look like,
Yeah.
Joe Harris, even Seth. had surgery. So there's a
Sad,
handful of
right,
players.
right.
In some surgeries more major than others, but I think those always come into play.
Yeah.
Shout out to optionality, the word you just threw out there. That's pretty dang awesome.
Is that
Sarah.
a real
Shout
word?
that- It will be now.
We've been
It
spending
will
our
be
summer
now.
coming up with certain favorite words of the day.
I'm
Shout
not
out.
sure if that is a
I'm
word.
taking it.
but
Nope, I'm taking it. It
Here's,
stands.
here's the question.
Sorry.
Do you ever on your broadcasts use the word point guardsmanship, Sarah?
No.
Because
use it
it
all
is Big
the time.
Dave's like word of the summer.
All
You know those word of the day calendars? If Dave had one every day this summer, it would just say point guardsmanship again.
I've been saying it for years.
I feel bad asking you this because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it should say it in the way it's described. What does it mean?
His skill, it has more so to do with the skill of the point guard and what he can do mentally on the floor. You know what I'm saying? That's the point guardsmanship of a
Right.
player to me.
But I feel like
Lonzo Ball's point guardsmanship and what he brings to him, you know, when he can take the ball away from Zach LaVine and turn him to that catch and shoot guy and, you know, make the game easier for everybody out there, like removing thinking. That's the point guardsmanship.
but I also feel like you have made.
point guardsmanship.
It's point guards because he plays the point guard, you know what I'm saying, position. Like Rondo. Rondo's point guardsmanship was off the
But you've
chain.
added at least 2 or 3 additional definitions that have nothing
Yeah.
to do with basketball.
fluid. Yeah, it's
you know,
fluid.
I'm gonna
like the spelling bee,
need-
use it in a sentence
I'm
thing.
gonna
You have
need
used it
the
in a sentence.
Big Dave
Thank you.
dictionary. I'm gonna
Oh.
let you hold on to that one for a while.
Appreciate it, Sarah. I appreciate it.
And I'll.
I'm going to keep building on
I'll
it.
circle back. Build on.
Oh.
Maybe you should not build on it, and you should retract from it.
I'm about
Maybe
building, Sarah.
we
I'm
should
about
make
moving
a little bit
forward.
more
Dave
consistent.
and I are
backwards.
watching a nationally televised Nets game at some point this upcoming season, and we hear you
Point
use that.
guardsmanship.
We go
We're
here.
gonna-
We're like,
All right, well, we still want to get Sarah's thoughts about what the Bulls did this offseason because Coinky Dink, 2 guys who were wearing Brooklyn Nets jerseys last year, were some of the Bulls'
yeah.
low-key offseason additions. So we'll talk about that coming up next. But first, a quick break to tell you all that today's episode is brought to you by PointsBet. PointsBet Sportsbook is counting down the days until the football season with a new
Almost.
offer every day until the season kicks off from now until September 8th. That's 1 week from today.
Just one.
We're 1 week from NFL football, you guys.
Almost there.
PointsBet Power Hour will unlock a new daily offer from noon to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Sign up for PointsBet now using that promo code CHGO to also get those 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. That's so much risk-free betting. Don't miss out on your chance to get daily access to free bets, boosted odds, and so much more now through September 8th. But that's not all. If you make that $51 or more first-time deposit at PointsBet, you'll get a free membership to CHGO, which unlocks all of our incredible web content at allchgo.com by all of our wonderful credentialed reporters here, including our guy, Will the Goat Gottlieb, who's got a great piece analyzing 538's Bulls thoughts from earlier this week, and a CHGO shirt of your choice from that merch locker. Download the PointsBet app today and use promo code CHGO to take advantage of this limited time offer. Because as we all know, Big Dave, once the game starts, the people don't just bet. What do?
live your bet life.
Next one of those is
Smoothed out.
coming to you, Sarah. You got to be ready for
That's
it.
smoothed out. That's smoothed
Your
out
best
right
luck.
there.
Are you a sports gambling person?
I'm not.
No?
No.
Right on, Sarah.
I was also going to say Big Dave makes me feel like I'm at church. When the preacher's going, you're like, yeah.
Well,
The call and response is strong.
hallelujah.
Yeah. It's like
No, I'm not. I don't gamble at all. That's not even my public. Oh, wait. Was I supposed to
No,
say that?
you
No,
said the
no,
right
it's
thing. It's
fine.
just this person
There's a-
over here.
It's always
Right there.
It's always good to have a balance of people in the world who bet
I'm
on
not getting
sports
paid
and those
for
who
the show,
don't
so
bet on
I
sports.
didn't want to. I didn't know if I messed up.
Oh,
the
no, no,
sponsor.
no, not at
If
all.
I was
You're
supposed
quite
to
all
say
right.
I'm an
Oh,
avid-
no.
avid
I
gambler,
gamble
but
enough
I'm
for the
not.
both
I
of
was
us.
just about to say that. Yes, that is parlay peck over there. You're good.
I'm
You're good.
taking Cody's advice. I'm taking the Boilermakers to win
3.5,
outright
he
against
said,
Penn
yeah.
State tonight.
3.5.
Boiler up.
I don't know what any of that means, but shout
Man,
out.
college football's already here.
Yeah.
Football has arrived.
It is. It's here, man. And I can't wait
How's
to watch it.
that Blue Demons football team looking?
See, this is why
That's
I
just cold-blooded.
This is the women's basketball team, the men's basketball team, the softball. Now I'm starting to pick out sports.
Yes.
But sometimes it's when you play another sport. It's not the worst thing if there's no football team. And I'm a Northwestern Wildcat.
Go
Yes,
Cats!
she is.
Blue,
Yes.
purple.
Hell yeah!
So it allows me to balance both. I don't
Got-
have to pick a side.
Got themselves a nice,
That
impressive
QB.
win over the Huskers, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Corn
yeah.
Huskers,
and
yes.
across the pond.
Right?
Yeah. Shout out.
Yeah.
Okay, so transitioning from Nets talk to Bulls talk, Andre Drummond,
Yeah.
Goran Dragic, had brief appearances, stints, whatever you want to call them, with the Brooklyn Nets last season. Each of them made appearances in all 4 of their playoff games against Boston in that first-round series. Vets who I think Bulls fans have been kind of underwhelmed by as far as free agency summer. Maybe people expecting a bigger splash, and this is essentially just veteran depth. People have been calling Goran Dragic an insurance signing in case Lonzo's not fully ready to go. Drummond, a slight upgrade over Tony Bradley / Tristan Thompson. What did you see from those 2 vets, and pick whoever you want to start with first, in their tenure with the Nets last year, and what do you think they can offer the Bulls this season?
I'm excited about them for Chicago and how they'll fit with this group. I'll start with Andre Drummond.
Sure.
One, I think he's only 28 years old. I think he's been in the league for so long.
We always think he's 35.
We always. Yes.
And he was spry. He can rim run. He gets up and down the floor. If you're looking to push, he eats the glass. I mean, his ability to rebound, and that's offensively and defensively, was something that when he was in the game, it changes the complexion of how you play and what you can do. And I also think his passing ability is so often they'd have him on the elbow,
True.
allow him to initiate some offense because of his vision, because of his touch, and I think just his touch around the basket, around the rim. And so for those reasons, I think the idea of what he can do offensively with the group and with the players you have. Of course, you hope Lonzo is healthy, but you think about a fast-paced game. You think about guys running, what he could do with Zach LaVine, working a pick and roll. All of those aspects, I think he's going to be a very important add. And to your point, being a veteran and a veteran presence, and for a group continuing to try and make strides and make jumps, I think he's an exciting player, and he did really well. I mean, he commanded more money and made the change of being a free agent and coming to Chicago. But I think for Brooklyn, he was a very impactful player throughout the course of the year. And Goran Dragic, I've always been a huge fan of Dragic, and that's obviously you saw what he did in Miami, but dating back to when he played in Phoenix, because he's so heady, he's so savvy. And so when he came, he had not played much with Toronto, obviously.
Right.
And so I think a large part of him coming back was getting back into shape, getting some of that rust off. And so I think that the idea of him having the offseason, having a preseason, getting right into it, is he more of a veteran in terms of years, how many minutes he's going to play, the impact he's going to make. But he showed an ability to just be a true point guard. And I also think that was something that the Nets were missing, a guy that's exactly what he did: organize the offense, run the offense. He can score when needed, and just to have around. I mean, there's so many young players for Chicago, or a handful even. The idea of practices, watching the way a guy works, just picking his brain. He was so smart in how he saw things and saw the game, that you say that insurance policy for Lonzo, that it probably is the case. But to have someone like him who's experienced so much throughout the course of the league, I would be excited. I mean, I was excited to have him, and it varied night to night, but that's where I think there'll be more of a consistency of maybe him knowing his role, knowing the minutes he's going to play, being in that type of shape that he wants to be. 'Cause he's a gamer. He's a gamer. I mean, he's got moxie to his game and to how he views things and what he wants to do. And so I'm excited. I think they're 2 great pickups, and I think you can never have enough guys in a locker room that are just good guys to have around, that want to win, that buy into the team concept, that understand what it takes in that component. And to me, in particular, Goran is he's heads above a lot of players that I've just watched, of just understanding how do I get the best out of other players.
Right.
Guys resonating with him, guys picking and feeding off of what he's doing, how he's playing, how he's viewing the game. And so I think they'll be really helpful.
Well, I mean, if he can make Jimmy Butler fawn over him and how wonderful of a person he is, he must be great and very well liked and likable, because Jimmy doesn't get along with anybody.
This is fair. What surprised you most about Andre Drummond? Because I was never a big Andre Drummond fan, because when I think of him, I always think of Detroit. And I remember him in Detroit, just a lot of flopping and a lot of stuff off the court going on with him. But, of course, he was always a great rebounder. And I had an issue with his game mentally and how he approached it. And it seems like when he got to the Nets, that all kind of changed. Like, I saw a whole change in how he approached the game and how he did certain things on the floor. They weren't, for lack of a better word, they weren't boneheaded things that he was doing on the floor. What surprised you the most about him when he got there to the Nets?
I think he was just so locked in. And I wouldn't say this surprised me, because this is something that I had seen and talked to coaches with the Pistons and saw the development of his game. But I think people so often overlook how he can pass. And that's an area that we talk so much about floor spacing. And obviously he is not a floor spacer in the concept of shooting three-point shots, not so much vertically, but his ability to space it by how he can pass and where you can put him on the floor. And also, just I said it, the rim running component, he's light on his feet. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
And I knew that when he came, but when he was standing, I'll never forget DeRozan Sharp, one of the rookies for Brooklyn, who's 5 and who is, a solid size. I saw them standing next to each other, and Andre made DeRozan look like he was a little boy, and I'm like
that commercial with Trae Young and Boban and like reaching things in the aisles.
It was just and then on a nightly basis watching just how he beasted player, multiple guys, and that's what the rebounding component, and so much of it is to his timing, his understanding of angles, but to me, how light, when you watch how light he is on his feet, and that was up and down. That to me was agility. That was just how he moved. Part of that was a pick and roll play, but I think, in that idea of teams wanting to run, wanting to get out, wanting to push the pace, I don't think you would often link that with, okay, you got. But to me, when he was in his best condition, and when he was locked in like that, that's exactly what he quick leak outs, things like that I think add another element when, okay, maybe you don't have a stretch 5, or you don't have someone that's able to knock down 3-point shots, but he can do other things that in some ways, depending on matchups and depending on the lineups you want to play with, that can combat that.
The big thing that was on the Bulls' to-do list in the offseason was convince Zach LaVine to sign a new contract and stay. They did achieve that. Leading up to free agency opening, Dave and I talked to our fellow Bulls fans a lot about what that meant. I think there were some Bulls fans who thought that Zach LaVine was a good player, but not the great, a.k.a. being worthy of a contract that big kind of player. Dave and I, the third member of our crew, we're all of like mind that Zach LaVine is still ascending to his prime.
Yes.
He improved in each of his back-to-back All-Star seasons.
Yeah.
His stats were on track to be even better this past season compared to his first All-Star season if it weren't for the fact that he decided to play through that nagging knee injury.
Right.
What are your thoughts on Zach LaVine staying on that large contract, and what kind of tier do you see him being in? Do you think he is good enough to be, alongside complementary pieces, the guy for the Chicago Bulls?
I love Zach LaVine, and I know
that's the right answer.
I love Zach LaVine, and you had mentioned at the top of the show that the last time we saw each other in person was All-Star Weekend.
Yes.
Pandemic. I was there doing a variety of work, and one of it was for Sirius XM NBA radio, and we sat down, Zach, and he was talking about a handful of things, and what stood out to me most about that, and I had never had a long conversation with Zach, his mentality and his approach, his confidence, and the hunger that he showed, and the type of player that he knew he was, but the type of player he wanted to be. And we've seen, you said it, we have seen him continue to ascend into what do I need to work on, and what do I need to improve for next year. And I think when you talk about the guy on teams, a lot of those guys, every year they come back with something else. Every year the uptick of what stats look like, and it translating into winning.
Yes.
And you guys knew it better than I mean, injuries, everything that the team dealt with, but the group itself and how they looked and how they looked when they were whole, how they were able to win. To me, seeing that and saying you're doing this, you're putting up these numbers, and you are a winning player, and a manner of which it felt like it was a natural progression. And so I'm excited about him. I think he's someone that you want as a foundational piece. You want as your guy. And he could do so many things. I mean, freakishly athletic, obviously we saw in early on in his career. But then you watch how he handles the ball, creates shots, what he does in pick and roll,
Step
how
back
he can get
three
to
he
the
added
basket.
to his game. Get into the free throw line more.
But that's the stuff that, to me, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to stop? What are you going to try and do? And so it's the component of scoring at all three levels, but doing so in a consistent way. And it felt like, and I'm not going to say I watched every single game, but it felt like you knew what you were going to get from him. And you knew, and even playing alongside DeMar and just the give and take of that and how he was able to, free flow in a way that it felt like what he was doing was always about how can I best produce to win. So that makes me, I will always, Chicago will always be a team that has my heart. So I always want to see them succeed. And that, watching him grow and be at that point, and now knowing that this is a place that he's going to be for a while, it makes me really excited.
Yeah, and I really like watching him now in this offseason because it feels like he's working on timing, you know what I mean? Like when to go as hard, and because before it was a grind. I gotta do this. And now he's trying to put some ease in his game, knowing when to do it. And I think that's the DeMar DeRozan factor right there. Basically becoming a pro. You know what I mean?
And those are the things where, and it's small, but even when we were talking about Goran and just what he brings. You never know what players are going to be able to impart something on an individual or another player that's going to help grow their game. And so to the DeMar point, like there are things that no matter how much work someone puts in or the skill set or the talent that they have, sometimes like, oh, I didn't approach this aspect of my game in this way. And I didn't realize how this could help really flourish this area of my game or of my skills. And so I do think that's really important. And so when some of those changes are made, or when sometimes fans are looking for a blockbuster name or a big time deal, you always want that. But I also think you can't overlook what it may do for some other players and how it may help elevate just the group as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay, before we move on to some more fun stuff in our final segment.
Wait, this has been the most fun I've had.
I do got one more basketball question.
Oh, you got another one?
One more basketball question for you.
Well, mine is simple. We all in Bulls Nation were watching DeMar DeRozan last season come in and show every doubter just how dumb they were. Worst off-season signing. He's over the hill. He's washed. He can't do this. He can't do that. Watching with just jaws on the floor. Master at work in the mid-range.
Yeah.
MIDI master. That's what I call him. DeMar, the MIDI master.
I mean, one word to describe how you felt when you got a chance to watch DeMar at work last season.
Yeah.
Man, I loved it because I loved watching him. I don't know why I felt, Toronto, Eastern Conference team, saw him a bunch, saw him in the playoffs with Brooklyn, and I think not seeing him quite as much or depend in San Antonio. I've admired his game always. I think anyone that has a patience and has an ability. I remember towards the end of his career with Toronto. That's when Nick Nurse, he was still an assistant at the time, but changed the dynamic of how they were playing, how Toronto was playing, and a huge aspect of that was shooting more three-point shots. And so DeMar that season, and you may have to look at stats, so no one get upset if I'm, but he was taking way more. And that was part of the plan. That was part of the strategy for the offense of him taking more three-point shots. And I think in general, his game is in the mid-range, and I know everyone is so big on analytics, understandably so, and it makes sense. However, we've seen, I'm watching Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving all. Sometimes it's about what are you best at, where are you most skilled at, and how can you be most effective.
Right.
And you watch how DeMar has poured into his game a poise, never getting sped up. Just the fundamentally sound nature that it's beautiful. I've always felt it's beautiful to watch him play. So seeing him do it with Chicago, do you know better than I the amount of clutch shots, the game
King in the fourth.
I mean, taking over
the New Year's Eve and New Year's Day back-to-back buzzer beaters.
Insane.
Wild.
But that type of stuff is special, and especially thinking about where he had been through, the journey he'd been through in his career, being at a place in Toronto where he probably thought he was going to be for most of his career, and the changes that go along with it. Maybe some of the less than hopeful optimism of what he would do with the Bulls, to see him just come through and be excellent and show that excellence on a nightly basis. I loved it. But his game, and that's where I just think, sometimes when players understand their strengths, understand how to play to their strengths, and grow with that as they mature and they get more experience, it was fun to watch. And I think, for as much as this has been a pace and space, three-point game, all the things that you understand do make sense. When you are that superb at something, sometimes you just got to stick with it.
For the record, you were correct. His last year in Toronto, when Nurse shifted things around, 3-point attempts for DeMar doubled from 1.7 to 3.6.
Yeah. What did he shoot?
Sarah knows her stuff.
We knew she was right. I
he
didn't
shot
need to look it up.
31% on those 3.6 attempts per game that season,
Yeah.
which was one of the better marks of his career. And then this past season with the Bulls, just under 2 attempts per game at 35%.
But exactly, you're taking so you do what works for you.
Yeah.
And what works for the offense, which obviously it did.
Yeah. You got to see both versions of the Bulls last year. I remember the game earlier in the year in Brooklyn when the Bulls beat
the Lonzo
the Nets
dagger.
with the Lonzo dagger.
Love that game.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, with that Lonzo dagger.
That's right.
And then you got to see the later version of them when you all completely just ran the Bulls off the floor.
Oh, God.
When they were here in United
The Nets
Center.
needed that one.
Yes, you
by
did.
the way.
You can see it on their face and how they were
Nets
acting.
needed that
They
one.
needed that. I'm mad we had to be the one to give it to you. But I'm curious about what you feel about Lonzo Ball's impact in seeing him on the floor with that team at that time and not being on the floor. What do you think his big impact is for the Chicago Bulls?
To me, it's his understanding of how to play the game and his smarts and how quickly he makes decisions, whether it's getting the ball up the floor, whether it's he's got an instinctual nature to his game that I think doesn't always show up in a stat sheet. And very often it does, but just how an offense functions and how he's able to orchestrate that. And so that's where just watching that, and I know there's a lot of focus on a shot and a shooting and everything that goes along with that, which is very important in the game today. Like that's a huge part of it. And whether you're a point guard, whether you're a shooter, it doesn't matter what position. You can be a 5, and that's still something that is a focus. But I just think anytime you have someone that makes such quick decisions and is that feeds into how other guys play, and that's where I think he just, and obviously the defensive end and what he does there, and that can't be overlooked. But I think when guys are moving the ball, it's popping, you're making quick decisions, everyone's getting a touch, understanding who needs a touch, the idea of the ball having energy, that's a real thing to me.
Yes.
And that is something that anytime he's on the floor, you feel. I'm watching that and I feel that, and you imagine that other players feel that, and I think that just allows things to function at such a high level and makes it more smooth. And I think that's so important, especially to have someone like him. But health is king.
Yeah. His point guardsmanship is what she's saying.
Hey, there it is.
That's what she's saying.
Comes back around.
God, I wish I would have remembered that.
That's what it is. Sorry, I'm here, Sarah, for a
Just keep
reason.
that one.
Now I know. Now I know what the meaning is.
Just have it in your back pocket. Bust it out whenever you want.
Point guardsmanship is.
But before we get
Everything
to
you just said.
before we get Sarah's
Everything
thoughts
you
on her
just said.
boxing career, Big Dave, you need to tell the people about Athletic Greens.
Oh, yes. Sarah would love some athletic greens, and you will love some athletic greens because you need some. Those 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, the probiotics, and, of course, oh, my God, Sarah Kustok, the adaptogens, dang it.
Oh.
Got to have them to start your day right. That special blend of ingredients that support your gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, your focus, your aging,
Yeah.
all those awesome things. And less than $3 a
some.
day. Less than $3 a day.
Produce, where's
Cheaper
that?
than getting all that different supplement stuff yourself. You're investing in that all-in-one nutritional,
we didn't give him any for
insurance,
free when we had him in the
vegan,
studio.
dairy-free, gluten-free,
handouts.
less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything. And it does all this while still tasting amazing. Oh, you need it in your life. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of that immune-supporting vitamin D, and 5 of them free travel packs, y'all, with their first purchase.
5 of them things.
5 of them things. Thank you very much. See? Ooh, they be listening.
Lawrence knows what's
They
up.
be listening at the same time. This is my influence that you're seeing, Sarah. This is my influence here. It's beautiful. You can get all that. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/CHGO Bulls. That's athleticgreens.com/CHGO Bulls, and take ownership over your health and pick up that ultimate daily nutritional insurance, because it's Athletic Greens. You scoop it, you dump it, you shake it, you drink it, and what you do, Joey?
Feel it.
Oh.
I made that up, Sarah.
Oh, I thought that was the last
Wait, look at this
song.
new
I literally
Photoshop
made
of
that
Goat
You better,
League.
you better trademark that.
Why is his wine glass filled with Athletic Greens so large, Joey?
He can't get enough.
You can't get enough,
Can't
man.
get enough.
He's
You got to
chugging it.
have it.
He's chugging it by the gallon.
Will is going to love that, please.
so much.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to see that. He's going to love
Yeah.
that. That's amazing.
Yeah, Gottlieb swears by it. Took a crate of it down to Brazil with him
Yes,
this
he
summer.
did. Yes, he did.
Big Dave, I was whispering to Sarah. Will Purdue also sat
Loves
down,
it.
heard you
Yes.
start doing an Athletic Greens read, and was like, "Where's mine?" 'Cause apparently he
Immediately.
swears by it.
He's
Has been
gonna
using
just
it
shake
for
it in his
years.
That's it? Oh, there should be some over there. We're going to get you some. We're going to hook you up. Don't even worry about it,
Will's
Sarah.
going to be mad if I got some and he didn't.
You know,
Yeah,
Will
just
got
don't
the
tell
hook. Yeah, you know.
Oh, I'm going to tell him.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I got.
Oh,
Speaking of our old friends at Comcast Sportsnet / NBC Sports Chicago, you were hanging out with our pal Kendall Gill not too long ago.
I was.
Joey, do we have the footage that Kendall tweeted? Because we need to show the people. While you're digging up that video, here it is. How often do you and KG get the chance to spar like this?
Pretty much every time I'm in Chicago.
Yeah. Look at this. I
yeah.
love how he helps you put
He
your
was trying
hood
to put
up.
the hood on, and then we couldn't figure it out. Yeah, so KG and I have a long history of sparring, of working out, of him making me try and pass out.
You did his whole 60-40
60-40
thing during the
60-40.
pandemic.
I'm doing it tomorrow morning.
Oh,
you-
my
he
He
Lord.
told me I have to show up at 5 a.m.
Again?
Oh,
Why
yeah.
are you doing that again?
You know what? Kendall Gill is food for the soul.
He is.
And he is great for. We used to have a show. I don't know if you remember this. On
Yeah.
Comcast Sportsnet.
Oh, yeah.
Mind, Body,
Yep.
and Soul.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, we're just trying to continue that. But he's the best of the best.
He
But
is,
he's also in such insanely good shape.
Oh, my
that
God.
reminds
shape.
me that I think.
Yeah.
That my little jogging and Pilates is
mean,
gonna keep me in shape, and
The
then I show
man,
up at his house.
you would not believe it if someone told you that man is in his 50s. He
Yeah.
is in his 50s.
He had me running around the block. It was raining.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was the real deal.
He tried to rope us into
No,
joining
he tried
60-40
to
during the
get us-
pandemic, and I
yes.
was like,
Y'all gotta
KG,
come
I
work
love
out
you,
with
buddy,
me.
but hell no.
I told Kendall I have to get in shape just to work out with you. No, bro,
And then you're
not
gonna
yet.
show up and realize that
Oh,
you're
I'm not in shape.
close.
Like, what am I doing
It
with my
happens
life?
every time.
So
He's amazing.
Seeing you spar with KG made me think of this question. I'm sure that we talked about it with Kendall when he came by earlier this summer, that he's been going after this Logan Paul, Jake Paul, whoever, one of those guys, trying to get him in the ring, right? And he keeps ducking Kendall and keeps ducking Kendall. Is there someone back from your days of working in Chicago sports media that you would like to get in the ring with?
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
And name that person.
Luke Stuckmeyer.
oh,
Stucky, I'm calling you
He
out.
was in
Stucky.
this very room like an hour ago, right
I'm gonna
before
be
you got here.
in so much trouble.
Stucky's definitely using the Timmy trumpets as his walk-up song.
Oh, yeah.
He was doing that today
I'm going to
already.
be in so much trouble that I didn't let him know. But
I mean, you missed
Get
each
him in the
other
ring.
by maybe 120 seconds.
So
Seriously.
I say it seriously, but also with Luke Stuckmeyer was integral, along with so many people at Comcast Sportsnet in my career, because Stuck, like
Yeah.
he's very direct.
Yeah.
He doesn't cut corners when he has something to say.
No.
And so he would walk over my desk and say, I was looking through your scripts for your on cam for that, and there's a lot of words. There's just a lot of words. He said, you need to fix that. You need to make it more concise. But he was always, he's a dear friend. I love him to death. But he was someone whose constructive criticism genuinely made me better. And so I appreciate him and I love him for that. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't be where I'm at in my career without him. However, I would love to try.
Thank you for teaching me so many useful career tips and tricks.
No.
Let's go at it.
There's another I wanted to ask you about real quick. Mike Grady. Who is now
how much
the
time do we
play-by-play.
have?
We've got a few minutes left.
Now doing the play-by-play for Minnesota. Formerly, obviously, was with the Nets. Can you speak on him a little bit and just basically how good he is? Because he is really excellent. You know what I mean?
I will keep this concise and brief. He's like a brother to me, one of my best friends. I'm going to miss him dearly. I could not be more proud because he's one of the best human beings on the planet, and I'm not saying that with elaboration. He is such a good person, great teammate. He is so talented. He's got the voice.
Yeah,
when you hear it, he's got the voice, but he's got the knowledge behind it. He has been a passionate sports fan, but basketball, NBA fan since he was a kid. Grew up in Indianapolis, and he knows so much about the game. He loves the game, but he sideline report, he can host the play-by-play. He can do everything, and he is as poised and composed and cool as can be in every moment. Resonates so well with players, but how he sees the game, how he understands the game, and how he loves the game. Minnesota fans are in for a treat because he's a good one.
You were one of those people who works in sports media that has like you have an awesome job just broadcasting Brooklyn Nets games, but then you also have a million side hustles. It reminds me of our guy Adam Amin, who was just in studio with us a couple weeks ago. You know, it's like he's doing baseball, he's doing football,
He's all over.
But you also do that. You know, you got the serious thing, Fox Sports. Can you tell us a little bit about and plug away this show We Need to Talk through CBS Sports?
Oh, thank you.
Because I'm intrigued and I want to know more.
Yeah, so we just had the 8-year anniversary. We Need to Talk, CBS Sports. It is a all-female hosted show, and we run the gamut on all sports and in more of the hotter topics happening in sports, and that's both on the field, court, anywhere. But also socially and some of the social issues that go along with it. And it's fun and amazing because we change the hosts and have a variety of us in and out depending on our schedules. So I get to be around, work with the likes of Lisa Leslie and Swin Cash and Tracy Wolfson and Kat Adams.
Yeah. I saw a picture of you and Lisa Leslie on your Instagram, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, there is such, and there's a lot more, and I forget, but it's, not long ago we had Cheryl Swoops on that came in as a guest host, and it's individuals that have accomplished so much throughout the course of their careers, and whether it's sports careers, mostly media careers. A lot of us have been first in some area, in some form, but to be able to also interview interesting people in the sports landscape and get their take, get their perspective, and again, talk about things that aren't just happening on the playing field, court area, but also off of it, and some important topics that we can get into. And I think that's the difference too in that platform and in that area.
Yeah.
Cool.
True indeed.
We Need to Talk. Check it out, Bulls
Absolutely.
Nation.
Now, I have to ask you this because I said this to you previously about what I wanted to do with you when you got here, and that's the segment I told Matt about called Pass It On. Well, I wanted you to have a question for our next guest. You don't know who the next guest is going to be.
I don't.
I can tell you it's an awesome one. It's an awesome
wait,
guest.
so you do know the guest?
I'm telling you now. I just found out. I know who it is.
Oh, we actually do know who our next guest
then
is.
should I tailor? Or you can't tell?
I can't tell you.
I felt like I would be able to tailor the question better. That's why I asked.
No. I just want you to keep it just
give
for
her
the next guest.
a general context?
Well, I had a question.
She's got a question. She's prepared.
Okay,
She's
cool.
prepared. She's Sarah Kustok, man. She's prepared, baby.
Well, I don't know if this is what you were looking for.
All right, but give it to me. The question you have.
But so obviously through my jobs, as you mentioned, and in particular the NBA season, travel to a ton of different cities. And I'm coming here to Chicago, and I realize there's so many new places popping up. I feel this way about living in New York. I want to know, wherever they live, give me your favorite spot to have dinner, your favorite spot to have lunch, your favorite spot to have breakfast, and your favorite spot to hang out, kick it. Music,
love it.
whatever. Can I ask 4 questions?
Yes.
I feel like that's all.
It's one question with
But
four
I want
subcategories.
I want to know, like, your home or where you live, tell me where to go. Tell me where to get the best eats and the best vibe.
I'm actually fascinated to know our next guest's answers.
I am very fascinated to know this now.
It probably wouldn't be any of the answers that I would expect as typical. Okay, last one.
You're gonna relay this back to me, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We'll let you know.
I got you.
Because I'm pretty sure you have at least some quasi relationship with this person.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
You certainly know who they are.
Yes.
Okay.
You know.
Before we get out of
Okay,
here,
hype.
I got you.
we just saw the Sky take out the New York Liberty in 3 games.
I don't know.
The Sky have moved on. Big bounce back win in game 2 against Connecticut last night. You are kind of a New Yorker now.
I know. I also.
Who were you rooting for in that first round series?
I can't say this because
I'm not trying to get you in trouble.
You do realize
I'm trying to get you in trouble.
The ownership of the Brooklyn Nets is also the ownership of New York Liberty. Joe and Clara Sy, who I love dearly.
Yes.
I frequent a lot of New York Liberty games.
Awesome.
But
Their president and CEO is Kia Clark, who I love, who's a dear friend.
Yep. Dear friend. And there you go.
But
yeah, there's the butt I was waiting for.
I mean, Chicago ties run deep, and it's not just that they run deep. Of course, you look at Candace Parker, it being the Sky, then playing at Wintrust, DePaul.
Yes.
But DePaul. Allie Quigley. I don't know if you've heard the story because I tell it all the time.
Tell me, please.
Because I elaborate a little bit.
All right.
I was her host on her recruiting trip at DePaul.
Oh, wow.
So we joke. She plays along that I was the reason that she came to DePaul. And I tell Coach Bruno this every time I see him. He didn't laugh as much as you're laughing. Or he does laugh like you're crazy. But she is someone who, watching her through DePaul, it's when I was coaching at DePaul, so coached her, was assistant there for a year. Watching her progression, not just through college, but the journey to even make it in the WNBA, playing overseas, now to be where she's at, now to be the most elite, best three-point shooter in the league, and that I have seen to go along with all the other things. She's someone who I'm so proud of. So it's almost like when you have a child, or maybe a sister, a family member on a team, even if you're from someplace.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were rooting for this guy.
Yes.
I didn't. Did
It's
I say
okay,
that?
Sarah's employers over there in New York.
Between the lines,
DePaul,
yes.
look at DePaul.
Right there.
Are you sure you hosted her for her visit as opposed to the other way around? I feel like you're too young to have been her
Hey,
host.
you're my guy.
Hey.
This is why I came in the studio.
What you going to get? Nothing
Gotta
but
give
love
you at least
in
one more
here, Sarah.
compliment on your way out the door. Bulls fans, I hope you enjoyed our visit with Sarah Kustok. Follow her on Twitter at Sarah Kustok, all season long covering the Brooklyn Nets.
Yes.
Don't be a stranger.
I won't. Can I come here all the time?
Yeah.
And hang out?
Yes.
You can. Yes, we will make
What do you think we're doing? Hanging out here all the
Do you
time.
have
all the time.
Athletic greens?
Athletic
Greens
greens
on deck.
We got sodas and beers in the fridge.
Yep, ice cream
People
too, if you want
routinely
it.
bring
We're
various
down to the
snacks,
fancy water.
donuts.
breakfast in there if you want it.
And a DePaul t-shirt.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
got it all. Thank you, guys.
And
Thank you for
your
having me.
vibes, as he says, yes, and
your
plenty
old
of
home,
vibes.
the Madhouse on Madison, just a stone's
Just
throw
walk
down
down
the street.
Kendall once made me push his car through the parking lots outside of the United Center. So that's what I think of every time I think
That
of
man
United Center.
is a maniac.
Push the car.
Maniac.
Push the car.
Oh, that's Rocky training.
Oh
right
my
there.
goodness!
That's amazing.
We've got a Bulls HQ episode dropping for you guys in your podcast feeds tomorrow with our guy Will and our guy Mark K. So make sure you're looking out for that. In the meantime, subscribe to CHGO Sports YouTube channel if you aren't already. Hit that thumbs up button underneath today's episode if you enjoyed it. It helps us out a lot. And as always, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Bulls_Peck. Dave's at BAWL Sports. We are CHGO_Bulls. And one more time, at Sarah Kustok. Give it up for Sarah Kustok being in studio. Oh my goodness. So good to see you.
All the way from the back.
All the way from the back.
Everybody get yourself.
Big Dave and Will are going to keep you guys entertained for most of next week. I'm about to peace out for a week. So
Yeah, he's gone.
I'll talk to y'all around the bed.
He's
For
not even
Joey,
here.
for Big Dave and Sarah, I'm Peck. We love you. We appreciate you, Bulls Nation.
Hey,
See you
Savine.
right. Be good.